Phobia,
Yeah.
little buddy.
Severe.
Claustrophobia. He is very, very, very scared of confined spaces. He actually got on a plane. I'm just going to say it. He got on a plane. He was going from an island. He was on a vacation. Gets on a plane with his girlfriend at the time. They're about to take off. He freaks out so bad because it's a small little puddle.
I got to get off the plane.
The guy has to. He gets off the plane, takes a 10-hour ferry, and meets his girlfriend, who was not very.
So this is affecting my life. For years, I have dreaded elevators, crowded rooms, crowded subway cars, especially small planes. They're a no-go, which is devastating because my daughter Jill lives in Kansas City out in the Midwest, and I often have to get on those little bitty planes. Sometimes I have to cancel my trip to see my kid because of the small plane. Because it has overcome my life, I decided to try and make a change and confront this phobia.
So with us today is the author of Don't Let Others Rent Space in Your Head, personal growth expert Gary Coxe, who spent a few hours working with Mike in his office yesterday, in the elevator too.
Many people ride in them every day with no problems. But for a claustrophobic like me, elevators can be hell. And since my office is on the 17th floor, I have to ride them all the time. To get started, Gary wanted to observe my fear in action, so we took a ride on a very crowded elevator.
Already this isn't good.
Tell me what you're feeling.
The heart is racing, and no sweat yet. No, it's just anxiety. Yeah. I see that when the doors close.
Right.
That's real bad. It's real bad. Like right now, I desperately want to get off this.
Right.
Only because you're here am I
Right.
doing this. I never would have gotten on this elevator.
Too many people.
There's way too many people.
Okay, so
and I'm in the back.
Which makes it worse because there's obviously the inability to get out of the elevator very quickly.
The fear is that it would stop for some reason, and for hours would be stuck here.
Right.
And that would go out of my mind.
Okay.
After being freed from the cramped space, Gary sat me down for a one-on-one session, and he began by having me list the reasons I must change the behavior.
It's embarrassing.
Okay, sure.
And a list of what I'm afraid will happen.
Worst case scenario, you're just crammed in the elevator. What comes to your mind?
That I will cause a scene in there.
Okay, lose control and cause a scene?
Absolutely
lose control and cause a scene.
And then we made a third list of the logical reasons I should not be afraid. Like the fact that if the elevator stopped, I could get help.
We're going to assume or pretend, use the imagination, as if we're going in the elevator, and we're going to role play this.
Using the list as cheat sheets, I had to retrain my brain to have positive thoughts.
In just a moment, but not now, Mike, we're going to go into an elevator. Is that a problem? You fire me back and say...
It's not a problem.
No problem. But Mike, you're going to lose control. You're going to come back and say...
I'm not going to.
But it's going to get stuck.
It will not get stuck.
Wait, here goes the door. The door's starting to close now. It's closing. You're stuck.
And it's going to be fine.
You're going 17 stories, Mike.
It will not get stuck.
See the difference?
It's not going to get
I
stuck.
can see the difference in you.
After about 30 minutes, it was time to put my training in action back to the cramped elevator.
This will not get stuck.
Yes. Oh, yes, it will.
No, this will not get stuck.
Yes, but it could.
No.
And if it did?
Because nothing's going to happen.
Surprisingly, it seemed to work. I was smiling and relaxed, only briefly stumbled when they brought the elevator unexpectedly to a halt.
So you're no longer... Wow, very good. Go. Stay on it. Stay on it. Stay on it.
It got stuck.
Stay on it.
We will get out of this.
Okay, very good.
We will get out of this.
All right, so we're not moving. Watch your reaction. Go back to your page. Why do you want to change this behavior?
Because it's embarrassing. I'm letting an elevator control my life and my mind. And we started up again.
Very good.
And I got to admit, this is not as bad.
Very good. Well done. Excellent.
Moving up to airplanes next.
That'll be next.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
Here's good old Gary Coxe right now. And he helped me out.
All right.
Thank you very much. And I still have my cheat sheet with me.
Good.
And I went over it last night.
Right,
I keep saying I will not lose control. I will not let an elevator control my life. I don't want a small plane to control my life anymore. So, and we're going to put me to the test. There's a phone booth over. I'm going to get in it in just a little bit to see if I can still go through these and be okay with being in that very tight booth.
Right.
But it's working so far, Gary.
Yeah, it's powerful. They did a great job. And as you know, we're really not reversing phobias. What we're doing is we're showing people how to change the way they think. If you think the way you've always thought, you will always get what you've always got. So if you want to get something more, something different out of life, often we have to change the way we think. And we have to go beyond the positive thinking stuff. That doesn't last long. So what we actually showed you to do yesterday is reconstruct your thought process. And you can use this for losing weight, in relationships, financial. It doesn't matter. Very powerful process.
There are, I think the stats say there's like 2% of the population. That seems
yeah,
really low.
I don't agree with that. I've heard that.
Before.
Yeah, I think it's way more than that.
But
you take a snake out in the street and you'll see people move fast.
I freak out when I see, you know, they're little bugs.
Right.
But I don't think I would become like, I wouldn't have an anxiety attack. Mike would have an anxiety attack.
Right.
On
You've watched it happen.
Plane.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with somebody who is at that level?
The thing is, I think what we have to keep on focusing on is we don't, I mean, I don't, hopefully I think most people would agree, we don't want these little things that can't even think, say like something, maybe a piece of wood or an elevator, literally controlling us.
Right.
This elevator controls his heart rate, everything.
Yes.
And the thing is, if we don't take control of these things, everything will control us instead of us controlling our lives.
What's the most common?
I think probably, you know, your snakes and your spiders and bugs perhaps are most common for a lot of people.
You know what I hear from a lot of people, though? Public speaking.
Well, yes,
Freaks them out.
that is the #1 fear of all, and that's amazing. But you put a person in front of a group of people, and you see a person change real quick.
Well, Juliet always says, are you afraid? I don't even... It's not fear so much. Well, what is the difference between fear and phobia?
Well, the phobia becomes irrational. In other words, you have to change your lifestyle because of it. If you're afraid of a dog, you have to move around or you have to check things to make sure the dog's not coming or whatever. So when it starts controlling your normal everyday activities, now it becomes irrational, and we start getting into the phobia range, if you will.
What are some of the weirdest phobias you've heard of before?
Oh, my, I've heard of, I think you had mentioned something about wet bread. Yeah, there was a family that I guess they were throwing wet bread on one of the kids, and from that day on it became phobic, you know.
As you would
it
when
sounds,
a child misbehaves.
when you think about it, it sounds funny. There's no question about it. But when we look at each person individually, most people have a personal mental barrier that they can't break through.
And most people can
rejection,
think back
whatever.
to that point where the phobia began.
Started. Wow.
What we're trying to do is reason with her. There is no reasoning. When you have a limitation like this, whether it's a fear of rejection or anything, you cannot reason with an individual because their thinking has to change. So that's what we have to do. Once the thinking changes, even though, like you said, you're an intelligent person, it's logical, she doesn't get it emotionally.
But if there was
what we have to do.